Welcome to Woo English, where you can learn English through captivating stories. Today, we're diving into a tale of courage and determination. Don't forget to like, comment, and press the like button to show your support and keep such stories coming. Let's embark on this journey together, improving our English in an engaging way. Chapter 1. A Spark in the Dark. In the heart of the 1950s, Montgomery, Alabama was a city divided by color. Life was dictated by laws of segregation, separating black people from white in schools, restaurants, and even on buses. It was in this setting that Rosa Parks, a seamstress with a quiet strength, made a decision that would echo through history. Rosa had always been aware of the injustices surrounding her. Every day she witnessed the harsh realities of segregation. Black people were required to sit at the back of the bus, and if the seats reserved for white passengers filled up, they had to give up their seats and stand. It was a daily humiliation, a reminder of their supposed place in society. But Rosa had a fire within her, a belief in justice and equality that she carried like a shield. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa finished her day's work at the Montgomery Fair Department store. As usual, she boarded the Cleveland Avenue bus for home. The bus gradually filled up, and soon the driver, following the segregation laws, demanded that Rosa and 3 other black passengers give up their seats to white passengers. While the others reluctantly moved, Rosa remained seated. Her refusal was not loud or violent. It was firm and dignified. She simply believed that she should not have to stand because of the color of her skin. Rosa's act of defiance was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. She was tired, not from physical fatigue, but from the constant grinding injustice of segregation. Her refusal to move was her saying, "Enough." It was a stand against the unfair treatment that she and other black people endured every day. The bus driver threatened to call the police, to which Rosa calmly replied, "You may do that." The police arrived, and Rosa was arrested for violating the segregation law. Her arrest shocked the black community in Montgomery. However, it also ignited a flame of resistance that had been simmering for years. News of Rosa's arrest spread quickly, and it wasn't long before plans for a boycott of Montgomery buses were taking shape. This was not just about a seat on a bus. It was about challenging an entire system of racial segregation. The Montgomery bus boycott, as it would come to be known, was a pivotal event in the civil rights movement. It was a demonstration of the power of peaceful protest and the strength of community solidarity. Rosa Parks's refusal to give up her seat sparked a movement that would change the course of American history. Her quiet strength and determination became a symbol of the fight for equality and justice. The boycott lasted for 381 days, during which black residents of Montgomery walked to work, carpooled, and found other ways to get around without using the buses. The boycott ended only when the Supreme Court ruled that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. Rosa's story is a testament to the impact one person can have on the world. Her action on that December day was a spark in the dark, illuminating the path toward a more just and equal society. It reminds us that sometimes standing up for what is right means staying seated. Chapter 2. Early Years of Courage. Rosa Parks was born on February 4, 1913, in Tuskegee, Alabama, into a world where the color of your skin determined the course of your life. Her early years were steeped in the warmth of family, but also shadowed by the harsh realities of racial segregation. Rosa's mother, Leona, was a teacher, and her father, James, a carpenter. They instilled in Rosa the values of dignity, self-respect, and the importance of education from a young age. However, life was not easy for the Parks family. James and Leona separated when Rosa was still young, and Rosa moved with her mother and younger brother Sylvester to Pine Level, Alabama, to live with her grandparents. It was in Pine Level, living on her grandparents' farm, that Rosa first became acutely aware of the injustices of segregation. She saw firsthand the disparity between the educational opportunities for black and white children. While white children rode buses to their new schools, Rosa and the other black children had to walk to their one-room schoolhouse, which was often lacking in resources and books. Despite these challenges, Rosa's family was determined to give her the best education possible. Leona often read to Rosa and taught her at home, fostering a love of learning that would last a lifetime. Rosa's grandfather, a proud and principled man, also had a profound influence on her. He instilled in Rosa a sense of justice and the courage to stand up for her rights. He would often sit on the porch with his shotgun during the height of racial tensions, determined to protect his family at any cost. This resilience in the face of adversity shaped Rosa's character. Rosa's education was furthered at the Industrial School for Girls in Montgomery, where she learned sewing and other vocational skills. However, her formal education was cut short when she had to return home to care for her ailing grandmother and later her mother. These responsibilities did not dampen Rosa's spirit. Instead, they deepened her resolve to fight for change. Throughout her early life, Rosa experienced various incidents of racial discrimination that further fueled her desire for equality. She recalled a particularly harrowing incident when a white boy threatened her as she walked home from school. Rosa stood her ground, picking up a brick and threatening him back. This act of defiance was risky, but it showed her refusal to accept injustice passively. Rosa's early years were a mix of hardship and resilience. The lessons learned from her family, the injustices she witnessed, and the personal experiences of discrimination all contributed to her strong character. She grew up with a keen sense of right and wrong, and an unshakable belief in the dignity of all people. As Rosa moved into adulthood, she continued to navigate the challenges of living in the segregated South. She worked a variety of jobs, from a shirt factory to a maid, always with the underlying desire to see the world change around her. In 1932, Rosa married Raymond Parks, a barber and an active member of the NAACP. Raymond was deeply involved in the fight against racial injustice, and his activism inspired Rosa. Together they became a formidable team in the struggle for civil rights. Rosa's involvement in civil rights activism grew, leading her to join the Montgomery chapter of the NAACP in 1943. She served as the chapter's secretary and worked closely with E.D. Nixon, a prominent civil rights leader. Rosa's work with the NAACP exposed her to the broader struggles of black Americans and deepened her commitment to change. She investigated cases of racial violence and worked to improve the welfare of the black community in Montgomery. The early years of Rosa Parks's life were a crucible that forged her into a leader. Her experiences with racial discrimination, combined with the values instilled by her family, created a strong foundation for her future activism. Rosa's courage was not born in a moment on a bus in 1955. It was nurtured through years of challenges and injustices. As she grew from a child aware of the world's inequities into a woman determined to challenge them, Rosa Parks became a symbol of the strength and dignity of the fight for civil rights. Her early years of courage laid the groundwork for her pivotal role in American history, proving that the journey to justice begins with the courage of one's convictions. Chapter 3. The Day That Changed Everything. December 1st, 1955, dawned like any other day in Montgomery, Alabama, yet it was destined to etch itself into the annals of history through an act of quiet defiance that sparked a revolution. On this ordinary day, Rosa Parks, a seamstress with an extraordinary sense of justice, was about to take a stand by remaining seated. Rosa finished her work at the Montgomery Fair department store as the winter sun began to dip, casting long shadows over the city. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of change, though Rosa couldn't have known the monumental impact her actions would have as she boarded the Cleveland Avenue bus for home. The bus was a microcosm of the segregated South. The first rows were reserved for white passengers, with a section at the back for black passengers. A movable sign marked the boundary, which could be shifted back by the bus driver to accommodate more white passengers as the bus filled up. It was a daily indignity, a symbol of the systemic racism that permeated every aspect of life in the Jim Crow South. Rosa took her seat in the first row of the black section, her thoughts perhaps on the day's work or the comfort of home that awaited her. The bus trundled along its route, stopping to pick up passengers until the white section was full. The driver, noticing that more white passengers were standing, stopped the bus and moved the sign back, ordering Rosa and 3 other black passengers to give up their seats. The moment was charged with tension. Rosa knew the law demanded she move. She knew the consequences of defiance. Yet, as she later recalled, her refusal to stand was not premeditated. It was born of a deep-seated conviction that the segregation laws were unjust, and she could no longer acquiesce to them. "The only tired I was tired of giving in," she would say. As the other passengers moved, Rosa remained seated. Her action was not one of defiance, but of dignity. She did not shout or resist. She simply refused to stand. The bus driver threatened to call the police, to which Rosa responded with calm resolve. Her quiet strength in that moment was a powerful rebuke to the system of segregation. The police arrived and arrested Rosa, taking her off the bus and into custody. The news of her arrest spread like wildfire through the black community in Montgomery. It was a galvanizing moment, a spark that ignited the flame of resistance against racial injustice. Rosa's arrest for refusing to give up her seat was not the first act of resistance on Montgomery's buses, but it became the most symbolic. It was the catalyst for the Montgomery bus boycott, a 381-day protest that would challenge the very foundation of segregation. The boycott was a testament to the power of collective action and the resilience of the black community in Montgomery. Rosa's decision on December 1, 1955, was a defining moment in the civil rights movement. It was a day that changed everything, not only for Rosa Parks but for countless others who were inspired by her courage. Her arrest and the subsequent boycott were pivotal in bringing about the Supreme Court's decision to declare bus segregation unconstitutional, marking a significant victory in the struggle for civil rights. The day that Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat was a day like any other, and yet it was profoundly different. It was a day when the ordinary act of sitting down became an extraordinary stand against injustice. Rosa's quiet defiance on that Montgomery bus became a symbol of the fight for equality and justice, a reminder of the power of individual action to inspire change. As the story of December 1st, 1955 unfolds, it becomes clear that Rosa Parks was not just a seamstress, but a warrior for justice, whose legacy would inspire generations to come. Her courage on that day serves as a beacon of hope and a call to action, reminding us that change is possible when we stand or sit for what is right. Chapter 4. The Arrest. In the twilight of December 1st, 1955, the air in Montgomery, Alabama, was charged with a palpable tension, a prelude to a pivotal moment in the American civil rights movement. Rosa Parks, a seamstress with an unassuming demeanor but an indomitable spirit, had just taken a stand by staying seated. This act of defiance, a refusal to give up her seat to a white passenger on a segregated bus, was about to set in motion a series of events that would forever alter the course of history. As the bus came to a stop and the police officers approached, Rosa's heart might have been pounding, but her resolve was as solid as the ground beneath her feet. She was arrested, not with violence or resistance, but with a quiet dignity that spoke volumes. Her thoughts during these moments were not recorded, but one can imagine a mixture of fear, indignation, and perhaps a hint of the monumental significance of her actions. Rosa was taken to the police station, where she was booked, fingerprinted, and detained. The process was dehumanizing, designed to intimidate and belittle. Yet, Rosa endured it with grace, knowing that her struggle was not just for a seat on a bus, but for the very soul of America. The news of Rosa Parks' arrest spread swiftly through the Montgomery community. It ignited a flame of outrage and a sense of urgency among the black residents and civil rights leaders. This was not the first time a black person had been arrested for challenging segregation laws, but Rosa Parks was not just any individual. She was a respected member of the community, known for her integrity, her work with the NAACP, and her quiet strength. The reaction to Rosa's arrest was swift and decisive. E.D. Nixon, a prominent leader in the NAACP and a longtime advocate for civil rights, immediately saw the potential for Rosa's case to become a rallying point for challenging bus segregation. He, along with other leaders, began to organize a bus boycott, calling for black residents of Montgomery to refuse to use the buses until they were desegregated. The word of the boycott spread through the community like wildfire, fueled by anger at the injustice Rosa had faced and by a collective desire for change. Flyers were printed and distributed, announcements were made in churches, and a sense of unity and purpose enveloped the black community in Montgomery. On the night before the boycott was to begin, a meeting was held at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. The church was packed to the rafters with people from all walks of life, all gathered for a common cause. It was here that a young Martin Luther King Jr., then relatively unknown, spoke with a passion and eloquence that inspired those present, and marked the beginning of his rise as a leader of the civil rights movement. The Montgomery bus boycott, sparked by Rosa's arrest, lasted for 381 days. It was a time of hardship for many. People walked miles to work, carpooled and organized alternative transportation networks. Yet the resolve of the community never wavered. The boycott not only challenged the segregation of public transportation, but also galvanized the civil rights movement across the United States. Rosa Parks's arrest and the subsequent boycott were a clear message to the powers that be that the black community would no longer tolerate the indignities of segregation. The boycott ended with a victory in the Supreme Court, which declared segregated buses unconstitutional, a landmark decision that paved the way for further civil rights advancements. The arrest of Rosa Parks is a testament to the power of individual courage to spark collective action. Her quiet defiance on that December evening was a catalyst for change, a moment when the simple act of sitting down became a profound stand against injustice. Rosa's ordeal and the community's response underscore the strength found in unity and the impact of standing together for what is right. As we reflect on the events that unfolded following Rosa's arrest, we are reminded of the enduring importance of standing up, or sitting down, for our beliefs. Rosa Parks' legacy is not just in the bus seat she refused to give up, but in the countless individuals she inspired to fight for justice and equality. Her story is a beacon of hope, a reminder that change is possible when we have the courage to challenge the status quo. Chapter 5. Echoes of Defiance. In the wake of Rosa Parks' arrest on December 1, 1955, for refusing to give up her seat to a white passenger on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama, a ripple of shock and indignation surged through the African American community. This chapter delves into the immediate aftermath of Rosa's act of defiance, exploring how news of her arrest spread and sparked a groundswell of anger, defiance, and a resolute call to action that would mark a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. As word of Rosa's arrest circulated, it traveled through the veins of Montgomery's African American community like electricity. Within hours, the news had not only filled the streets of Montgomery, but had also reached the ears of the local leaders who recognized the significance of Rosa's stand against the entrenched system of segregation. This was not the first time a black passenger had been arrested for resisting bus segregation, but Rosa Parks was not just any passenger. She was a respected figure, known for her quiet dignity and unwavering commitment to the cause of civil rights. The reaction was swift and decisive. Leaders of the African American community, including E.D. Nixon, president of the local NAACP chapter, and Joanne Robinson, president of the Women's Political Council, saw in Rosa's arrest an opportunity to challenge the unjust laws of segregation. They understood that her act of defiance could serve as a catalyst for a broader movement for change. Overnight, plans were set in motion to organize a bus boycott, a direct response to Rosa's arrest that would leverage the economic power of the African American community to demand an end to bus segregation. On the evening of Rosa's arrest, mimeographed flyers began to appear across Montgomery, calling for a one-day boycott of the city's buses. The message was clear. Enough was enough. The time had come to take a stand, to show the city of Montgomery and the world that the African American community would no longer tolerate the humiliation and indignity of segregation. The flyers, crafted in the dead of night and distributed with a sense of urgency, were a testament to the community's readiness to act. They were an echo of Rosa's defiance, amplifying her solitary act into a collective call to arms. The boycott, initially planned as a one-day protest, was a resounding success. On December 5th, the day of Rosa's trial, the buses of Montgomery rolled through the city's streets, empty of the African American passengers who constituted the majority of their ridership. The sight of those empty buses was a powerful symbol of unity and resistance, a visible manifestation of the African American community's refusal to acquiesce to the status quo of racial segregation. Emboldened by the success of the one-day boycott, the community resolved to continue their protest. Under the leadership of a young Martin Luther King Jr., the newly formed Montgomery Improvement Association, MIA, took charge of what would become a 381-day boycott of Montgomery's buses. The boycott was not just a protest against the buses. It was a challenge to the entire system of segregation that oppressed black lives in the South. Rosa's arrest and the subsequent bus boycott captured the nation's attention, drawing both support and criticism. But more importantly, it galvanized the African American community of Montgomery and beyond. It showed that collective action, grounded in non-violent protest and driven by a desire for justice, could challenge the pillars of segregation. The echoes of Rosa's defiance, in the form of the Montgomery bus boycott, would reverberate through the coming decades, inspiring generations of activists and laying the groundwork for the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks' act of defiance and the widespread anger and action it inspired remind us of the power of individual courage to ignite a collective response to injustice. Her arrest did not just lead to a boycott. It awakened a sense of agency and solidarity among the African American community, setting the stage for the broader struggle for civil rights. In the story of Rosa Parks and the echoes of her defiance, we find not only the seeds of a movement, but a profound lesson in the power of standing up for what is right, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Chapter 6. A Movement Awakens. In the wake of Rosa Parks' arrest, a movement that would forever alter the landscape of American civil rights was born. This chapter explores the inception of the Montgomery bus boycott, a pivotal moment in history spearheaded by the newly emerged leader, Martin Luther King Jr., and fueled by the unwavering commitment of the African American community in Montgomery. As the news of Rosa Parks' defiance and her subsequent arrest spread, the simmering discontent among the African American community reached a boiling point. The time for change had come, and the community was ready to rally behind a cause that symbolized not just a fight against bus segregation, but a broader struggle for dignity, equality, and justice. The Montgomery Improvement Association, MIA, was formed in the days following Rosa's arrest, with a young pastor named Martin Luther King Jr. at its helm. King, relatively new to Montgomery and to the civil rights struggle, possessed a charisma and eloquence that quickly made him the spokesperson for the boycott and the voice of a burgeoning movement. Under his leadership, the MIA laid out the framework for what would become a historic 381-day boycott of the city's buses. The boycott was a testament to the community's resolve and unity. African American residents of Montgomery, who constituted the majority of the bus system's clientele, chose to walk miles to work, school, and church rather than ride segregated buses. They organized carpool networks, secured vehicles from sympathetic allies, and found innovative ways to sustain the boycott over the long months. The community's commitment to the cause was unwavering, their determination fueled by the belief that their collective action could bring about change. King's role in the boycott cannot be overstated. His speeches and sermons, delivered with a passionate conviction, inspired hope and galvanized the community. He spoke of non-violent resistance, drawing on the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi and the principles of Christian love. King's message was clear. The boycott was not merely an act of protest, but a moral crusade against the injustice of segregation. The Montgomery bus boycott was more than a local issue. It captured the attention of the nation and the world. As the boycott continued, it faced significant challenges, including legal battles, economic hardships for those participating, and direct threats to the safety of its leaders, including King himself. Yet the resolve of the Montgomery African American community never wavered. Their struggle was emblematic of the larger fight for civil rights, a fight that was gaining momentum across the South. The boycott also highlighted the power of collective action and the potential of the African American community to effect change through unity and nonviolent protest. It was a model that would inspire future civil rights campaigns and solidify nonviolence as a fundamental strategy in the fight against racial injustice. The end of the boycott, prompted by a Supreme Court ruling that declared segregated buses unconstitutional, was a monumental victory. It was a testament to the courage of Rosa Parks, the leadership of Martin Luther King Jr., and the determination of the Montgomery African American community. The success of the boycott did not just end segregation on Montgomery buses. It awakened a movement that would challenge the very foundations of racial segregation in America. The Montgomery bus boycott was a turning point in the civil rights movement, a moment when the African American community demonstrated that peaceful, sustained protest could bring about social change. Led by Martin Luther King Jr. and fueled by the community's commitment to justice, the boycott was a bold declaration of the community's refusal to accept the status quo of segregation and inequality. This chapter, A Movement Awakens, serves as a reminder of the power of collective action and the impact of leadership in the pursuit of social justice. The legacy of the Montgomery bus boycott and the emergence of Martin Luther King Jr. As a national leader in the civil rights movement are enduring symbols of the struggle for equality and the relentless pursuit of a more just society. Chapter 7. The Power of Unity. In the heart of Montgomery, Alabama, as the winter of 1955 gave way to the new year, a movement of unprecedented unity and determination was taking shape. The African American community, sparked by Rosa Parks' act of defiance and propelled by the leadership of Martin Luther King Jr., embarked on a boycott of the city's bus system. This was not a simple protest, but a profound declaration of dignity, rights, and the demand for justice. The Montgomery bus boycott, as it came to be known, would test the resolve of the community, showcasing their ingenuity, perseverance, and the power of unity in the face of systemic oppression. The boycott began quietly, with individuals making the decision to walk to work or find alternative means of transportation rather than submit to the indignities of a segregated bus system. Yet, what started as a ripple quickly grew into a tidal wave of collective action. The African American residents of Montgomery, who comprised the majority of the bus system's ridership, stood firm in their resolve, choosing to walk miles to work, school, and church, regardless of the weather or the burden it placed upon their daily lives. The community's commitment was unwavering, but the journey was fraught with challenges. The absence of the buses meant longer commutes, often starting before dawn and ending after dusk. Shoes wore thin, and the physical toll was evident, yet the spirit of the movement only grew stronger. Stories of elderly individuals walking miles, of parents carrying their children, and of neighbors forming carpools with the few cars they had, painted a vivid picture of sacrifice and solidarity. The response from the white establishment was swift and severe. Harassment and violence against boycotters increased, and legal actions were taken against the movement's leaders. Yet, these attempts to quell the protest only served to strengthen the resolve of the African American community. The unity displayed by the boycotters was a beacon of hope and a challenge to the status quo. It was a demonstration of their collective power, a power that derived not from violence or anger, but from a shared commitment to justice and equality. Amidst the struggle, the community found innovative ways to support the boycott. A system of carpooling emerged, organized with military precision. Private cars, station wagons, and even makeshift buses were utilized to ferry individuals to and from their destinations. This network of transportation was a testament to the community's ingenuity and their determination to sustain the boycott without resorting to the bus system they were protesting against. Churches played a central role in the movement, serving as meeting points, organizing centers, and places of solace and encouragement. The weekly mass meetings held in churches were not just logistical gatherings but spiritual uplifts, reinforcing the moral righteousness of their cause. Martin Luther King Jr.'s eloquent speeches and the soul-stirring hymns sung by the congregations filled the participants with a sense of purpose and belonging, These meetings were a reminder that their struggle was not just about buses, but about the very soul of America. The boycott lasted for 381 days, a year that saw the best and worst of humanity on display. Yet, through every challenge, the unity of the Montgomery African-American community never wavered. Their solidarity in the face of adversity, their creative problem-solving, and their unwavering commitment to non-violence left an indelible mark on the civil rights movement. The success of the Montgomery bus boycott was not just the Supreme Court ruling that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. It was the demonstration of the power of a united community to challenge and change unjust systems. It showed that ordinary people, when they come together for a just cause, can achieve extraordinary things. The power of unity that the African-American community in Montgomery exhibited during the boycott is a lesson that resonates through history. It is a testament to the strength that lies in collective action and the enduring spirit of a people committed to fighting for their dignity and rights. The Montgomery bus boycott stands as a powerful example of what can be achieved when a community stands together, united in purpose and action. Chapter 8. The Tension Rises. As the Montgomery bus boycott pressed on, the resolve of Rosa Parks, her family, and the entire community of boycotters was put to the test under the weight of increasing challenges and mounting tensions. The city of Montgomery became a battleground, not of violence, but of wills, where the quest for justice was met with fierce resistance from those clinging to the old ways of segregation. Rosa, having become the face of this monumental struggle, found her life transformed overnight. No longer just a seamstress, she was now a symbol of the fight against racial injustice, a role that came with both reverence and heavy burdens. The Parks family faced constant threats to their safety. Mysterious calls filled with menacing voices became a disturbing part of their daily lives. Despite the danger, Rosa and her husband, Raymond, stood firm, their commitment to the cause unwavering, even as the stress began to take a toll on their health and livelihood. The boycotters, too, faced a barrage of challenges. Each day was a test of endurance and faith as they navigated the complexities of getting to work without the buses they had once relied on. The carpool system, ingenious as it was, became a target for police harassment. Cars were stopped for minor infractions. Drivers were fined, and the vehicles were impounded. Attempts by the city authorities to break the boycotters' spirit and cripple their organized resistance. But perhaps the most insidious challenge came in the form of legal battles. In a bold move to quash the boycott, the city of Montgomery wielded its legal system as a weapon, indicting over 90 of the movement's leaders, including Martin Luther King Jr., on charges of conspiring to interfere with a business operation. The trials were tense, filled with the rhetoric of segregationists who saw the boycott as a challenge to their way of life. The courtroom became an arena where the ideals of justice and equality were pitted against the entrenched norms of racial segregation. Amid these tensions, the African-American community of Montgomery showed remarkable solidarity and resilience. Fundraising campaigns were organized to support the legal defense of those indicted and to reimburse those who had been fined. The community's churches, already central to the organization of the boycott, became even more vital, hosting meetings where strategies were formulated and spirits were lifted through prayer and song. The pressure from the boycott and the legal challenges it provoked created deep rifts within Montgomery. Yet, it also brought to light the strength and determination of the African-American community. Their struggle was not just for the right to sit anywhere on a bus, but for the recognition of their humanity and rights as citizens. As the legal battles dragged on, the tension in Montgomery did not just rise, it simmered, threatening to boil over. Yet, the boycotters remained disciplined, their eyes on the prize of justice and equality. Their endurance was a testament to their collective strength, a force that could not be easily quashed by threats, fines, or legal intimidation. The boycott, which had started as a response to Rosa Parks' arrest, had grown into something much larger, a symbol of the broader fight against racial injustice in America. The tension that rose with each challenge faced by Rosa, her family, and the boycotters was matched by a growing sense of solidarity and purpose, not just within Montgomery, but across the nation. As the boycott stretched into its second year, the resolve of Rosa Parks and the Montgomery African-American community remained unbroken. Their struggle, marked by challenges and tensions, became a beacon of hope and a call to action for all who dreamed of a more just and equal society. The Montgomery bus boycott was no longer just a local news story. It had become a pivotal chapter in the narrative of the American civil rights movement, a chapter written by the courage, resilience, and unity of those who refused to give up their seats or their rights. Chapter 9. A Community's Sacrifice. As the Montgomery bus boycott continued, the daily lives of those involved transformed into a testament of sacrifice and resilience. The boycotters, steadfast in their commitment to justice and equality, faced challenges that extended far beyond the inconvenience of finding alternative transportation. Their sacrifices were personal, profound, and a poignant reflection of the collective struggle for civil rights. Each morning, before the sun had even begun to cast its first light over Montgomery, individuals of all ages prepared for their day with a determination that had become as routine as the journey itself. They laced up their shoes, now worn and tattered from the countless miles walked, and set out on foot. The distances varied, some walking as much as 6 to 8 miles one way, just to get to work, to school, or to any of the other daily commitments that awaited them. The physical toll was evident, with many suffering from blisters, sore legs, and the sheer exhaustion that comes from hours of walking. Yet it was the emotional and psychological weight that perhaps bore down the hardest. The decision to boycott the buses was not made lightly. It came with significant personal sacrifices. Some boycotters faced retribution from employers who were unsympathetic to their cause or who bowed to pressure from segregationists. Job losses were not uncommon, putting an additional strain on families already operating on the margins of economic security. Despite these hardships, the spirit of the community remained unbroken. Stories of sacrifice emerged as beacons of inspiration. There was the teacher who, after losing her job for participating in the boycott, turned her home into a makeshift classroom for her students. There were parents who, unable to afford childcare, carried their children on their backs as they walked the long distances to their jobs. And there were the elderly, some leaning on canes, who refused to let age or physical limitations deter them from standing in solidarity with their community. Amidst the struggle, the boycotters found strength in one another. Neighbors checked in on each other, offering whatever support they could, whether it was a pair of comfortable shoes, a shared meal, or a kind word of encouragement. The bond that formed among the participants was fortified by the shared sacrifices and the common goal that united them. The community also rallied to provide alternative transportation for those who needed it most. The carpool system, a network of private vehicles that crisscrossed the city, became a lifeline for many. Volunteer drivers, using their own cars or vehicles donated to the cause, worked tirelessly to ensure that no one was left stranded. This system was not without its risks, as drivers faced harassment and arrest, but it stood as a testament to the community's ingenuity and willingness to sacrifice personal comfort for the collective good. Churches played a central role in sustaining the boycotters' morale and resilience. They became centers of support, offering not just spiritual solace, but also practical assistance, such as organizing fundraising efforts to help those financially impacted by the boycott. The churches also served as venues for mass meetings, where the voices of the community could be heard, and the resolve to continue the fight was renewed. The sacrifices made by the Montgomery boycotters were a powerful demonstration of the community's commitment to dismantling the oppressive system of segregation. The personal losses endured by individuals were woven into a larger tapestry of struggle and resistance, highlighting the collective power of a community united in pursuit of a common cause. As the boycott stretched into its second year, the resolve of those involved did not wane. The sacrifices continued, but so did the belief that justice would prevail. The Montgomery bus boycott was more than just a protest against segregated buses. It was a declaration of the human spirit's capacity to endure, to sacrifice, and to hope. It was a chapter in the civil rights movement that would not be forgotten, a chapter defined by the strength, the sacrifice, and the unwavering commitment of a community determined to change the world. 10. The Battle in Court. In the heart of the civil rights era, as the Montgomery bus boycott continued to unfold, a crucial battle was being waged not on the streets, but in the hallowed halls of justice. This chapter delves into the legal confrontation that ensued, a battle that would not only challenge the entrenched system of segregation in Montgomery, but also set a precedent for civil rights law across the United States. As the boycott gained momentum, it became clear that the fight against segregation would need to be fought on multiple fronts. The decision to take the battle to court was strategic, aiming to dismantle the legal foundations of segregation on public buses. The lawsuit filed against the city of Montgomery was not just a legal maneuver. It was a bold statement of resistance against an unjust system. The legal team, comprising courageous lawyers and civil rights activists, prepared their case with meticulous care. They argued that segregated seating on Montgomery buses violated the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which guarantees equal protection under the law to all citizens. This was a daring legal argument at a time when segregation was deeply ingrained in the social fabric of the South. The city of Montgomery, determined to maintain its segregationist policies, mounted a vigorous defense. The legal battle that ensued was intense, pitting the ideals of justice and equality against the forces of tradition and discrimination. The courtroom became a battleground where the principles of American democracy were tested. As the case made its way through the judicial system, it attracted national attention, highlighting the Montgomery bus boycott and the broader struggle for civil rights. The boycotters, led by figures such as Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, watched closely, knowing that the outcome of this legal battle could have profound implications for their movement. The legal proceedings were fraught with tension as both sides presented their arguments with passion and conviction. Witnesses took the stand, recounting their experiences of discrimination and humiliation on Montgomery buses. Their testimonies were powerful, painting a vivid picture of the daily injustices faced by African Americans under the system of segregation. Throughout the trial, the boycotters remained resolute, continuing their protest despite the legal uncertainties. They organized carpools, walked miles to work, and stood in solidarity, demonstrating the strength and unity of their cause. Their perseverance was a testament to their belief in the righteousness of their struggle and their hope for a just outcome. After months of legal wrangling, the moment of truth arrived. The court issued its ruling, declaring that segregation on Montgomery buses was unconstitutional. This landmark decision was a monumental victory for the boycotters and a crushing blow to the forces of segregation. It validated the boycotters' demands for equal treatment and paved the way for the desegregation of buses in Montgomery. The victory in court was celebrated with jubilation by the African American community and civil rights advocates across the country. It was a clear sign that the tide was turning, that the legal system could indeed be a tool for justice and change. The decision not only marked the end of segregated buses in Montgomery, but also served as a beacon of hope for the continued fight against racial discrimination. The Battle in Court chapter of the Montgomery bus boycott story is a reminder of the power of legal action in the pursuit of civil rights. It underscores the importance of courage, perseverance, and strategic thinking in challenging systemic injustice. The legal victory achieved in Montgomery was not just a win for the boycotters, but a win for the principles of equality and justice for all Americans. As we reflect on this pivotal moment in the civil rights movement, we are reminded of the enduring importance of standing up against injustice, not just in the streets, but also in the courts. The legacy of the Montgomery bus boycott and the legal battle that formed its backbone continues to inspire and inform the struggle for civil rights, demonstrating that with determination and unity, change is possible. Chapter 11. Victory and Vindication. In the heart of the struggle for civil rights, a monumental victory emerged, forever altering the course of American history. This chapter unfolds in the wake of a tireless campaign against segregation, where the resilience of the Montgomery African American community and their allies was put to the ultimate test. The culmination of their efforts and sacrifices was about to bear fruit in a ruling that would echo through the ages, marking a pivotal moment of victory and vindication. As the Montgomery bus boycott extended into its 381st day, the atmosphere among the boycotters was one of cautious optimism mixed with the fatigue of a long-fought battle. The community had stood united against the injustices of segregation, enduring personal sacrifices, legal battles, and the constant threat of retaliation. Yet their resolve never wavered, driven by the belief that justice would prevail. The legal challenge to the bus segregation laws, initiated by a courageous group of activists and lawyers, had slowly made its way through the courts. The case argued that segregated buses violated the Constitution's guarantee of equal protection under the law. It was a bold assertion, one that sought not just to end segregation on Montgomery's buses, but to challenge the very foundation of segregation itself. Then, on November 13, 1956, the moment of truth arrived. The Supreme Court of the United States delivered its verdict. In a decision that reverberated across the nation, the court ruled that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. The ruling was not just a legal victory, it was a moral vindication of the boycotters' long struggle for equality and dignity. The news of the Supreme Court's decision spread quickly, igniting a wave of jubilation among the African American community in Montgomery and supporters nationwide. The victory was a testament to the power of collective action and the righteousness of their cause. It was a beacon of hope that illuminated the path towards further civil rights victories, signaling that change was not only possible, but inevitable. The day the decision was announced, the churches of Montgomery, which had served as fortresses of strength and solace throughout the boycott, were filled with congregants. Tears of joy were shed, and songs of freedom were sung, as people of all ages came together to celebrate a triumph that many had dared only to dream of. Martin Luther King Jr., whose leadership had been instrumental in guiding the boycott, addressed the gathered crowds, his words capturing the significance of the moment. He spoke of the victory not as an end, but as a beginning, a catalyst for continued struggle towards justice and equality for all. The boycott had demonstrated the African American community's determination and unity, showcasing a collective strength that could no longer be ignored or suppressed. It had laid bare the moral bankruptcy of segregation and galvanized support for the civil rights movement across the country. The victory was not without its challenges. The ruling was met with resistance from segregationists, and the integration of Montgomery's buses did not happen overnight. But when African American residents of Montgomery boarded the buses on December 21, 1956, sitting freely wherever they chose, it was a powerful symbol of the changes that were beginning to sweep across the South. The boycott's success and the Supreme Court ruling were a vindication of Rosa Parks' quiet act of defiance and the sacrifices of countless individuals who had supported the boycott. Their victory was a beacon of hope, signaling that injustice could be challenged and overcome with perseverance, unity, and the courage to stand up for what is right. The end of the Montgomery bus boycott was not just a victory for those who had participated in it, but a victory for the nation. It marked a significant step forward in the struggle for civil rights, proving that non-violent protest could bring about social change. The legacy of the boycott and the Supreme Court ruling that affirmed its cause continues to inspire generations to fight for justice and equality. As this chapter of the story closes, the victory and vindication felt by the Montgomery community serve as a reminder of the power of collective action and the enduring spirit of those who dare to challenge the status quo. It stands as a milestone in the journey towards a more just and equitable society, a journey that continues to this day. Chapter 12. Rosa's New Journey. The story of Rosa Parks did not conclude with the triumphant victory of the Montgomery bus boycott. Her act of defiance and the subsequent boycott were but chapters in a lifelong journey of activism. This next chapter explores Rosa's life after the boycott, her move to Detroit, and her continued work in the struggle for civil rights, illuminating the path she carved for future generations. After the boycott, Rosa found herself both a national icon and a target of resentment. The backlash from her stand against segregation made life in Montgomery untenable. In 1957, seeking both safety and new opportunities, Rosa and her husband, Raymond, relocated to Detroit, Michigan. This move marked the beginning of a new chapter in Rosa's life, one that would see her continue her fight for justice in a different context. Detroit, known as the Motor City, presented a new set of challenges and opportunities for Rosa. While the North was not bound by the formal codes of Jim Crow that characterized the South, it was nonetheless riddled with its own brand of racial inequality and segregation. Housing, employment, and education in Detroit were deeply segregated, and racial tensions simmered beneath the surface. Undeterred by these challenges, Rosa immersed herself in the civil rights movement in Detroit. She worked as a secretary and receptionist in the Detroit office of Congressman John Conyers, a prominent civil rights advocate. In this role, Rosa continued her activism, using her position to influence policy and support civil rights initiatives. Her work with Conyers was more than administrative. It was a continuation of her lifelong commitment to justice. Rosa's activism in Detroit extended beyond her work with Conyers. she became involved in the local chapter of the NAACP, the Detroit Urban League, and numerous other civil rights organizations. Rosa was particularly passionate about addressing the issues facing the African American community in Detroit, including police brutality, housing discrimination, and educational inequities. In 1963, Rosa was part of the massive march down Woodward Avenue in Detroit, led by Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., known as the Walk to Freedom. This march, which drew tens of thousands of participants, was a precursor to the famous March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Rosa's involvement in the Walk to Freedom underscored her continued commitment to nonviolent protest and her belief in the power of organized action to effect change. Throughout her years in Detroit, Rosa also focused on the plight of political prisoners, the freedom struggles in Africa, and the welfare of youth in the African American community. She founded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development, which aimed to empower young people through education and civil rights activism. The Institute's Pathways to Freedom program took young people on tours of the country, tracing the history of the civil rights movement and highlighting the ongoing struggle for justice. Rosa's life in Detroit was not without its challenges. She faced financial difficulties and personal trials, including the death of her beloved husband, Raymond, in 1977. Despite these hardships, Rosa remained a steadfast advocate for justice, embodying the principle that the fight for civil rights was not confined to the South or to a single moment in history. Rosa Parks' journey after the Montgomery bus boycott illustrates the breadth of her commitment to civil rights. Her move to Detroit and her ongoing work in the movement reflect a life dedicated to the pursuit of equality and justice. Rosa's story teaches us that activism is not defined by a single act or moment, but by a lifetime of advocacy and courage. As we reflect on Rosa's new journey, we are reminded of the enduring power of individual action to inspire collective change. Rosa Parks's legacy extends far beyond her refusal to give up her seat on a bus. It encompasses her relentless activism, her resilience in the face of adversity, and her unwavering belief in the dignity of all people. Through her life's work, Rosa Parks continues to inspire generations to stand up against injustice and to work tirelessly for a more equitable world. Chapter 13. The Price of Peace. In the aftermath of the Montgomery bus boycott, a victory that rippled through the veins of America's civil rights movement, Rosa Parks found herself navigating a new and challenging landscape. Her quiet defiance and unwavering dignity had catapulted her into the annals of history, yet the road ahead was fraught with unforeseen challenges. This chapter delves into the personal and professional tribulations Rosa faced, exploring the complex price of peace she paid for her historic stand. The boycott's success, while a monumental victory for the civil rights movement, marked the beginning of a difficult period for Rosa and her family. Despite the triumph, Rosa encountered a backlash that would impact her life in profound ways. In the days following the Supreme Court ruling, her resilience was tested as never before. Professionally, Rosa found herself ostracized in Montgomery. The woman who had once served as a seamstress in a local department store could no longer find employment. Employers, wary of her now iconic status and the controversy that surrounded her, were reluctant to hire her. The economic strain on Rosa and her husband Raymond grew increasingly severe. Raymond, too, faced repercussions for his wife's stand and his own activism. He was dismissed from his job, and the couple struggled to make ends meet. The personal toll was equally harrowing. The Parks family received constant threats, and the stress of living under such intense scrutiny and danger weighed heavily on them. The psychological impact of this sustained campaign of intimidation and harassment cannot be understated. It was a stark reminder that the fight for equality had far-reaching consequences, touching not just the societal and political realms, but the deeply personal lives of those who dared to stand up. In search of respite and new opportunities, Rosa and her family made the difficult decision to leave Montgomery. They moved to Detroit, hoping to escape the direct backlash of Rosa's stand and start anew. Yet the move was not just a retreat, but a strategic relocation to continue the fight for civil rights on a different front. Detroit, with its own set of racial challenges and injustices, provided Rosa with a new battleground. In Detroit, Rosa's journey of activism took on new dimensions. She worked alongside John Conyers, a prominent figure in the U.S. House of Representatives, focusing on issues such as housing discrimination, educational inequality, and the broader spectrum of civil rights. Rosa's role in Detroit was not as publicly pronounced as her act of defiance in Montgomery, but it was no less significant. She lent her voice and effort to grassroots movements, community programs, and political campaigns that sought to uplift African Americans and address systemic injustices. Rosa also faced new challenges in Detroit. The city's racial dynamics, marked by segregation and economic disparities, mirrored the broader national struggle for civil rights. Rosa encountered a society in transition, grappling with the realities of migration, industrial decline, and urban unrest. Her work was cut out for her, yet she approached it with the same quiet determination that had defined her stand on the Montgomery bus. The price of peace Rosa paid was steep, encompassing professional setbacks, personal sacrifices, and the relentless pursuit of justice amidst backlash and adversity. Yet her legacy was one of indomitable spirit and unwavering commitment to the cause of equality. Rosa's journey after the boycott highlighted the complexities of the civil rights movement and the ongoing struggle for social justice. Rosa's experiences post-boycott serve as a poignant reminder of the costs associated with making a stand against systemic injustice. Her sacrifices, both seen and unseen, underscore the courage it takes to challenge the status quo and the resilience required to forge ahead in the face of continued opposition. Rosa Parks' story is not just one of a single moment of defiance, but a lifelong journey of activism, characterized by both its triumphs and its trials. As we reflect on Rosa's new journey and the price she paid for peace, we are reminded of the enduring nature of the fight for civil rights. Rosa's story teaches us that victories are often accompanied by new challenges, but also that courage in the face of adversity can inspire change that echoes through generations. Chapter 14. Legacy in the Making. In the tapestry of the American civil rights movement, few threads are as vibrant and enduring as the legacy of Rosa Parks. Her act of quiet defiance on a Montgomery bus became a symbol of the struggle against racial injustice, inspiring generations to stand up for equality. This chapter reflects on Rosa's indelible mark on history and the recognition she began to receive, painting a portrait of a legacy in the making. As the years passed, the world began to acknowledge Rosa's monumental contribution to the civil rights movement. Her personal sacrifices and steadfast commitment to justice transformed her into an icon of peace and equality. This recognition came in various forms, from awards and honors to her becoming a subject of books and educational materials, ensuring that her story would be told for generations. Rosa Parks was not seeking accolades when she refused to give up her seat on that December day in 1955. Yet, as the world looked back on that moment and its ripple effects on the civil rights movement, the honours began to pour in. She received the NAACP's Spingarn Medal, the Martin Luther King Jr. Award, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, among others. These awards were not just a recognition of a single act of defiance. They were a testament to Rosa's lifelong commitment to the struggle for equality and justice. Rosa's influence extended beyond the borders of the United States, with leaders and citizens around the world drawing inspiration from her courage. Her story was a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples everywhere, demonstrating the power of individual action to spark collective change. As she began to receive global recognition, Rosa remained humble, always redirecting the focus back to the movement and the many who had stood and continued to stand against injustice. Throughout her life, Rosa continued to work tirelessly for civil rights, engaging with community programs, speaking at events, and participating in campaigns to ensure that the fight for equality pressed forward. She founded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development, aimed at providing youth with the educational and professional opportunities she had been denied. Through this work, Rosa's legacy was not just in the past. It was a living, breathing force that continued to impact the present and future. Rosa's role in the civil rights movement was immortalized in museums, parks, and memorials across the country, each bearing her name and telling her story. These places became pilgrimage sites for those who wished to pay homage to Rosa's courage and to draw strength from her example. Yet perhaps the most significant aspect of Rosa's legacy was the way in which her story became an integral part of the American narrative, taught in schools and discussed in forums as an essential chapter in the nation's history. In her later years, Rosa received not just accolades, but the love and admiration of a nation. Yet, she wore her legacy lightly, always emphasizing the collective effort of the civil rights movement and the work that still needed to be done. Rosa's humility and unwavering dedication served as a reminder that the fight for justice and equality was ongoing, and that each person had a role to play. As we reflect on Rosa Parks's legacy in the making, we are reminded of the profound impact one individual can have on the course of history. Rosa's recognition during her lifetime was a reflection of her enduring influence on the civil rights movement and beyond. Her story, one of courage, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to justice, continues to inspire and challenge us to take our stand, just as she did on that bus in Montgomery. Rosa Parks' legacy is not just in the awards and honors she received, but in the lives she touched and the movements she inspired. It is a legacy of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of peaceful protest. As we look back on Rosa's role in the civil rights movement and the recognition she began to receive, we are reminded that her journey was not just about a moment of defiance, but about a lifetime of advocacy for a more just and equal world. Rosa's legacy is a beacon for all who seek to make a difference, a testament to the power of standing up by sitting down. Chapter 15. The Torch Passes. As the twilight of Rosa Parks' direct involvement in the civil rights movement approached, her actions continued to resonate, echoing through the decades as a beacon of hope and a call to action. Her refusal to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus was not the end, but a beginning, a spark that ignited a flame of resistance and determination for equality and justice that burns brightly to this day. This chapter explores the enduring legacy of Rosa Parks and the ongoing fight for civil rights, underlining the relevance of her actions in the contemporary struggle for equality. Rosa Parks's courageous act on December 1, 1955, was a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement, setting in motion a series of events that would lead to significant changes in American society. However, the struggle did not end with the Montgomery bus boycott or the desegregation of public buses. Rosa's torch of resistance was passed on to the next generation of activists who continued to fight against racial discrimination and inequality. The 1960s and 1970s saw a surge in civil rights activism, with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and many others taking up the mantle to challenge systemic racism in all its forms. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were landmark achievements, but they were also reminders of the long road ahead. Rosa Parks's legacy was evident in these movements, her quiet defiance inspiring countless individuals to stand up against injustice. Rosa's influence extended beyond the borders of the United States, becoming a symbol of resistance and the struggle for human rights worldwide. Her story taught that change is possible when ordinary people take extraordinary stands. It was a lesson that transcended time and geography, inspiring activists fighting against apartheid in South Africa, advocating for democracy in Eastern Europe, and challenging authoritarian regimes across the globe. In the years that followed, the torch that Rosa Parks carried was passed through generations, each facing its own challenges and battles. The fight for civil rights evolved, addressing not just racial discrimination but also gender inequality, LGBTQ+ rights, and the rights of immigrants and refugees. The essence of Rosa's stand, a refusal to accept injustice, remained a central theme, a guiding light for those navigating the complexities of modern social movements. The relevance of Rosa Parks's actions in today's world cannot be overstated. In an age of social media and global connectivity, her legacy of peaceful protest and civil disobedience offers valuable lessons on how to effect change. The Black Lives Matter movement, the fight for DACA recipients, and the global push for gender equality are contemporary iterations of the struggle for civil rights, each drawing inspiration from Rosa's example. As we reflect on the continued fight for civil rights, it is clear that Rosa Parks' influence is as potent as ever. Her legacy is not confined to the past, but is a living, breathing force that motivates individuals to take a stand for what is right. Rosa taught us that one person's actions could indeed make a difference, and her torch of resistance is now in our hands. The torch passes through time, illuminating the path for those who fight for justice and equality. Rosa Parks's legacy reminds us that the struggle is never over, but with courage, determination, and unity, progress is always within reach. Her life and actions continue to inspire a new generation of activists, proving that the fight for civil rights is as relevant today as it was over half a century ago. In the ongoing journey toward a more just and equitable society, we carry Rosa Parks's torch forward, guided by her unwavering spirit and the timeless relevance of her stand. The battle for civil rights in all its forms continues, and Rosa's example lights the way. As we face the challenges of our time, her legacy teaches us that each of us has the power to effect change, to stand against injustice, and to carry the torch of freedom and equality for all. Chapter 16. Eternal Flame. As the sun sets on our journey through the life and legacy of Rosa Parks, we find ourselves standing in the glow of an eternal flame, a flame that Rosa herself lit with her act of quiet defiance on a December evening in 1955. This final chapter pays homage to Rosa's enduring legacy, exploring how she is remembered today and the timeless lessons her story imparts to each of us. Rosa Parks's legacy is woven into the fabric of history, not just as a figure of the civil rights movement, but as a symbol of the enduring fight for human dignity and equality. Her refusal to give up her seat on that Montgomery bus is remembered not merely as an act of individual defiance, but as a moment that galvanized a movement, changing the course of American history forever. Today, Rosa is remembered in various ways that ensure her legacy continues to inspire and educate. Museums and educational institutions around the world feature exhibits dedicated to her life and the broader civil rights movement. Schools teach her story, not just as a lesson in history, but as an example of how courage and conviction can challenge and change unjust systems. Monuments and memorials in her honor stand in cities across the United States, from the Rosa Parks Museum in Montgomery to the statue of her seated figure in the United States Capitol's National Statuary Hall. These memorials serve as physical reminders of her contributions, inviting reflection on the values she stood for and the progress that has been made, and the progress that still lies ahead. Rosa Parks' influence extends far beyond these tangible memorials. Her spirit lives on in the ongoing struggles for justice and equality, in the movements that seek to dismantle systemic racism, and in every individual who stands up against oppression in all its forms. Her legacy is a testament to the power of nonviolent resistance and the impact of taking a stand, no matter how small the action may seem. The lessons Rosa Parks teaches us are as relevant today as they were over half a century ago. She exemplifies the importance of standing firm in one's convictions, the power of peaceful protest, and the role of individual actions in driving collective change. Rosa's life reminds us that change often starts with a single act, a moment of courage that can ignite a movement. Rosa Parks' story teaches us about the strength of quiet resolve. In a world that often equates loudness with power, Rosa showed that there is immense strength in calmness and steadfastness. Her dignity in the face of injustice and her unwavering commitment to her principles offer a blueprint for effective activism and leadership. Moreover, Rosa's legacy underscores the importance of empathy and understanding in the fight for civil rights. Her story encourages us to stand in solidarity with those who face injustice, recognizing that the struggle for equality is a shared responsibility. It prompts us to ask ourselves what we are willing to stand up for and how we can contribute to making the world a more just and equitable place. As we conclude our journey with Rosa Parks, we are reminded that her flame, lit by her courage, conviction and commitment to justice, burns eternally. It illuminates the path forward, guiding us through the challenges of our time with the lessons of her life. Rosa's legacy is not confined to the pages of history books. It is alive in the ongoing struggle for civil rights, in the hearts and actions of those who continue to fight for a better world. In remembering Rosa Parks, we celebrate not just the woman who refused to give up her seat on a bus, but the enduring symbol of resistance she has become. Her legacy is a call to action, an invitation to each of us to carry the torch of justice and equality forward. Rosa's story teaches us that while one person can spark change, it is together, united in purpose and action, that we can sustain the flame of progress. The eternal flame that Rosa Parks ignited with her simple act of defiance continues to shine brightly, a beacon of hope and a reminder of the power we each hold to challenge injustice and inspire change. As we move forward, let us carry Rosa's legacy in our hearts, guided by her example and committed to the cause of justice for all. And that brings us to the end of our story, a journey through courage, resilience, and the power of standing up for what is right. We hope you found inspiration and learned valuable English lessons along the way. If you enjoyed this story, please leave us a comment and hit the like button to show your support. For more stories like this and to download PDF versions, visit wooenglish.com. Your engagement helps us bring more enriching content to learners around the world. Thank you for joining us at Woo English, and we look forward to sharing more stories with you.